Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of The Jimothy Show. It is episode 7. And if you're hanging with me live here on X, YouTube, Twitch, we're simulcasting everywhere, or maybe you're watching it after the fact as a replay or on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We are live, and you are looking, if you're looking, and if you're not looking, at Fruit Loops. Some fantastical Fruit Loop images. That's right. We are going to be talking a little bit about the latest in cereal ratings today. I've got a new one for you. And if you can't see, let me describe this cereal to you. It is circular, there's a hole in it. Sounds kind of like a donut, maybe a Cheerio, but they're colorful. We've got purple and green and orange. All the colors of the rainbow. That's right. It's Fruit Loops. We're going to rank Fruit Loops on the cereal list today, the only scientific cereal list on the internet. And we're going to do it live on The Jimothy Show, which is the only X First podcast on the internet. I don't know if you can believe that, but it's true. What does it mean to be The Jimothy Show and to be the only X First podcast on the internet? Well, it means, yeah, of course, we're broadcasting on YouTube and Twitch, but the news and the conversation so often is moving forward and moving quickly on X. And we know that because even huge national archives, government institutions, they're all having it out. They're all fighting, especially this week. Not a political show, but let me just tell you something. It's going to be hard not to sneak a little bit of the current goings on onto this show because there's so much happening on X. And despite the name change, and I don't really think X is a great name, it feels weird to say. Xbox was probably never a great name for the Xbox console. But it should still be Twitter. But it is absolutely, despite its tales of imminent demise, the place where politicians go and news organizations go, government organizations, anybody that wants to follow the news and see what's going on are going to be doing it on X. You can't get it on Facebook. We're not going to be talking about it on Threads. You might be able to see and hear about a little bit of it on like TikTok or YouTube Shorts or Instagram, but those are so compressed by what we should or shouldn't say. Let me just tell you, as a new TikTok user, there's a lot that they don't want you to say on that app. And though I've really enjoyed TikTok for improving my creativity, it's got a lot of great tools. If you want to say something, you really kind of want to get it off your chest, the one place that does not give a rip is x.com. And we can prove that today. We can prove it today. We will talk a little bit about some crazy stuff that's been going on X. But that's what it means. The conversation gets driven on X, but really you can follow me anywhere. So if you want to hang out with me on TikTok, I'm there. All my content's not going there. All of my content goes to X. And some of it, the live streams like this, the Jimothy Show, are going to go to YouTube and Twitch as well as X because Restream.io makes it easy for me to broadcast in 3 places at once. Pulls the chat together. If you're here in the chat, I'll be happy to focus some of your comments and put them on the screen. And feel free to interact with me throughout the show. But I do have a lot of content for you. So I've got a whole show planned out for you. But don't hesitate to jump in. Let me know you're here. Let me know you're listening. And if there's something that you want me to comment on or take a look at, maybe we'll do it live. So who is Jimothy? Why are you even here? I'm anonymous on X because it's got to be separate. I have to be able to speak my mind, and I don't even say anything that controversial. But cancel culture has been alive for a real long time in the West, and it's just too dangerous. Maybe that's changing, and we'll talk about that today. Literally, one of the first news stories today is about maybe cancel culture is changing. But for me, I've worked most recently in tech, consulting, retail, sales in the past, bartending, waiting tables, installing appliances, stocking shelves, mowing lawns, any job you can think of, blue collar, white collar. I've probably done a piece of it for a little bit of time. And I've enjoyed it all. It's made me who I am today, maybe somebody that's happy to talk to you now. I'm a family man. I got my little Jimothys out there. We're going to go hang out and do some more stuff later today. Been playing a little Pokemon with them early today, making some rubber band jewelry, So we're having fun today. It's Saturday here, February 8th, 2025. I'm a gamer. I'm a fan of technology. I'm a social commentator. And Grok, the AI that is built into X, rates me pretty positively, like a 3 out of 5 profile. High effort slop is the bad way to say my profile and what my account's all about. But it says when it analyzes my post, it says Jimothy's posts reflect a mix of humor, self-deprecation, and commentary on digital culture. That's about right. That feels right to me. The pull quote that it still has for me was when I was talking about AI and how AI really can't make you funny. It's going to be one of the last things that AI can do for you is create real humor that's going to make somebody laugh and chuckle because that's the connective tissue that makes you a human. I said, quote, funny is hard to generate. Comedians bleed to figure it out. You can't send AI LLMs to fail at dive bars for 9 years trying to find a good 15-minute set. That takes clothes that smell like smoke and a lot of lonely nights. In other words, it takes your humanity. You have to be human. And you have to use the AI tools, of course, but don't let it take away your authentic human voice. It's got to stay there. That's my encouragement to you and to everybody that's in the sound of my voice right now. So that's a little bit about me. And what have I been doing recently that you should know about? Well, I've been working a lot. You'll hear me talk from episode to episode about my fitness. I'm constantly trying to stay fit. I've got 2 small young daughters, little Jimothys, little baby Jimothys, and I want to live a long time for them. I really want to make sure that when I'm spending time with them, it's not with an unhealthy dad that can't get up and move around, that can't get out there and really hang out with them and keep up with their speed of life. Now, the fact is, kids always wear out their parents. They got way more energy than we do. But what can I do to make sure that I'm as active as I can be, that I'm living as long as I can be, as long as I can, and make sure that I get to see all the moments in their life, right? So the older I get, the longer term thinking I try and do, and less about, well, what am I going to eat today? And more about, you know, how do I live 10 more years to maybe see grandkids someday if that's in the picture, but even just to see them grow up, you know, to see them succeed. So I talk about fitness a lot and eating healthy, and I've not always made the right choices. But I go back and forth on like, well, what's the best way to maintain or lose weight? Right? We talk about that a lot as a culture because, especially since the '70s and since the grain focused, carbohydrate, sugar focus of our food pyramid has changed, we have a really hard time making sure that we're fit and healthy, and obesity is on the rise. It's shockingly on the rise. And if you're like most Americans, you're obese. That's the fact. And if you're listening to me somewhere besides America, your country, wherever you are, is more obese than it used to be too. And a lot of science research, books, commentary has been done on this, but the majority of it is that our diet has changed because we can rapidly increase and produce carbohydrate based, highly realized that cereal is kind of a like and fit. But unfortunately, I really like cereal and I like talking about it. So we are going to rank Fruit Loops live on the show in the list. But one thing I will dabble in a lot is fasting. I will do this intermittent fasting. I read this book. My doctor recommended a book. They said, "Oh, you should read this book called The Obesity Code." I was like, "Thanks, doc, for recommending me that book." But it was surprising because most corporate, run doctor locations, they just want to prescribe you drugs, not something that could actually help you deal with a problem as opposed to just dealing with a symptom. So they give you drugs, they give you blood pressure medication, they give you, well, now they might give you a GLP-1, right? They might give you a, one of the weight loss drugs that may actually work. Don't know, not on it. But the book, The Obesity Code, was effectively about like, hey, how about you get to high fat, high protein, keto style diet? It didn't come out and say you need to do a keto, but it was really about fasting. It was like an introduction to fasting. And what does intermittent fasting look like, right? So that's where you don't eat for, let's say, 16 hours a day, and then you only eat during an 8 hour eating window. That makes 24 hours. So if you stop eating at 7 p.m. at night after dinner and you don't eat until 11 a.m. the next day, aka you skip breakfast, then your blood sugar has a chance to slow down. Blood sugar comes down, your insulin comes down, and then your body can kind of pivot from eating through the glucose and everything that's in your blood from your recent food and then start consuming the fat that's in your fat cells, right? We know that we store up fat for the winter in the fat cells, but how do you access them? How do you ever get your body to go, you should eat that fat? It's like, well, you have to stop eating. And there's a lot of studies and science about whether that's actually useful. But most of them aren't long term. Most of them have like these 2, 3 week, 2, 3 month studies about fasting. So the fact is, for me locally, uh, sample size of one, that I know that when I do intermittent fasting, I fasted for 21 hours on Friday. So I put some electrolytes, some non-sugar electrolytes in my water. So I was staying healthy, but never got hungry the whole time, which is how I know you could probably skip a meal, right? Like I never even got hungry. 21 hours, never got hungry. But I eventually broke my fast, and unfortunately, I lost like 3.1 pounds during that time. Most of that's water weight, and it's just kind of flushing out all of the salt and sugar and everything else that's in my system. And I'm going to put it back on today with cereal. But it all flushes out. You lose 3.1 pounds, and it goes, man, it's unfortunate that that works because I like eating. I think most of us do, which is why we are, the way we are. But that's what I've been doing. I've been going like, okay, maybe I should get back into fasting. I've got a trip coming up soon that you want to be fit and comfortable for. Anytime you're getting into an airplane seat, you suddenly want to take up way less space. It's like, this couch doesn't seem to have nearly as many limits as the airplane seat. Can't imagine why. So I've been doing that. Also, reminder for everybody that's out there, it's Valentine's Day this week. And maybe you didn't want to know. Maybe you want to duck and cover, take shelter. But if you are somebody that has a significant other that would really like something for Valentine's Day, it's kind of the weekend to go buy it or plan it out, whether that's flowers or something else. So just a little friendly reminder from Jimothy to you, Valentine's Day this week. And if you're somebody that doesn't celebrate, doesn't care, don't want to talk about it, turn off your social media, block that, block those words, mute Valentine's on Twitter, and then you're going to feel a lot better about things. Okay, my coffee is still hot because it's in my Ember mug. Whew, nice and toasty. Let's go to show feedback. Show feedback today is one. So I was getting some show feedback on TikTok, actually, on my TikTok account, which is still at James Baratheon. You can find me there if you want to. Again, if you follow me on X, I'm there. Don't need to go anywhere. But if you want to follow me somewhere else, you're always welcome to. Happy to have you in all of the platforms that I go to. They said, "Oh yeah, man, I'm looking forward to the cereal talk." And they started listening on Apple Podcasts. They said, "Oh, I'm listening to the podcast because I've been posting over there." They found the podcast. So there's a bunch of folks that listen on Apple, a bunch of folks that listen on Spotify. Most people that are in my circle right now still listen to this live stream live. There's 10, 15, 20 of you in here listening right now. And say hi in the chat. And or on the live stream like replays, like on X or on Twitch or on YouTube. People are finding the show there. So wherever you want to find it, it's great. But I got a little bit of feedback that people are listening on Apple. I can see the stats. You can go in and take a look and see the stats, but it's still shocking somehow. It's like, oh, people are listening to this show. Of course they are. Okay, so actual mailbag and show feedback. I put out a post earlier. Let me share it here. And we got a little bit of show feedback. A little bit of live show feedback. There we go. Next episode of the Jimothy Show is recording soon. Of course, it's recording right now. And is there any topics you want to see? Jaw Dropper, we're going to come back to you and Yi. Monkey in the Machine, who actually has two things I'm going to talk about today, wants me to do more cereal rankings with a thorough review of each cereal using variables such as crunchiness, flavor, smoothness, and aftertaste. What about what are some more like tasting words, some wine tasting words? I think we need more bonus points for the quality of the toy inside the box. Are they still doing toys in the box? I haven't found any that are doing toys in the box recently. Like I don't think it exists. I feel like it's not happening. Um, what's up, Andrew? Good to see you here, buddy. So, okay, we're gonna do the cereal ranking live. Like I can't move past this part without just doing the cereal ranking. So I hope you're ready. What is the cereal ranking? So I started a list. I'm sharing it if you're watching it live, and I'm gonna read it out to you at least a little bit because it's a short list still. This is the best cereals list as of today. Number one, before I add anything new, is Lucky Charms. Number two is Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And number three is Post Raisin Bran. Now, why are there only three? You say, Jimothy, I know that you've had more cereal than those three. But here's how science works we start an experiment fresh. We don't go with what we remember about the data. We start a fresh experiment, don't we? Yes, of course we do. So when I started the list a week ago, back in episode 6 of the Jimothy show, we had just these three. Why? Because I had happened to have all that cereal in the house. The little Jimothys had a bunch of cereal around, and I was like, well, I've been eating Post Raisin Bran, but I'm ready to start the list. The world needs a scientifically ranked list of best cereals. And so I had a bowl of each that the kids had around, and that left Lucky Charms number one, Cinnamon Toast Crunch number two, and Post Raisin Bran number three. Sorry, Post Raisin Bran. Now, what Monkey and the Machine wants me to do is do deeper rankings, detailed rankings. Let me talk about the crunchiness, the mouth feel. Is it going to cut the roof of my mouth? And of course, the answer is yes, if it's Captain Crunch. It's pretty violent cereal. Why am I not doing that? Why haven't I added a table with all of the different capability, the flavors, maybe even the price points, maybe a time of year that we would recommend a cereal? Hey, this, for autumn, the most contemplative of times, you really want to be you know, in a honey bunches of oats. No. Or yes, but I already have a full-time job. So I don't think I can afford, as much as I appreciate the enthusiasm, to do anything but a raw best list. Here's the other benefit of not doing anything else but saying it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, is it's a hard cut. There's less data, and so it takes more true brain science to just suss it out in the moment. So we're going to do it right now. I had a bowl of Fruit Loops literally before the show. The bowl is still in the sink. I should probably go fix that before Mrs. Jimothy finds out. The bowl is still in the sink. And it's going to land. It's going to land once my keyboard wakes up and connects. It's number 2. I'm adding it in. It's Fruit Loops. Fruit Loops is our new number 2. So let it be written. So let it be done. I'm making the post on X right now. Boom. Okay. I hope that was everything you wanted it to be. I hope this can be enough for you. Next week, we'll have a new cereal to rank, and it will be scientific and official, unquestionable even. So prepare yourself for the next episode of the best cereals list. Thanks for watching and listening to that. Okay, next up in show feedback. Jaw Droppa, aka Davy J, at Davy J _ says, are you going to mention ye or yay? Yay, as Kanye, as in Kanye West, aka Kanye West. So this I'm going to say a thing or two about Kanye West. but not much because you can't repeat most of the stuff he said without getting kicked off of the podcast platforms. I like this article from the Babylon Bee. The headline says disaster after Kanye West's X account was hacked by Kanye West. So if yeah, if you're not aware, if because you're not on X, Kanye West was, and boy, was he in what I hope is rare form. He said every bad thing you could think of, and if you haven't kind of seen him just trip out over the last few years, uh, he's just continued to be more hyperbolic and say incredibly challenging things with seemingly without much benefit, right? Like, what's the benefit except to be antagonistic? What's the benefit except to be inflammatory? And so, every bad word that every small child ever learned on the playground and said to impress the other boys and girls in the playground and see if they can get in trouble is what Kanye put out this week on X in a incredible, incredible tear, just like 19 hours of stream of consciousness of just the worst things that you could say. And, he said, hey, look, I'm just trying to be totally inflammatory. I'm just goofing. But this was a social experiment. You think the cereal thing is a social experiment. He's suggesting that him crashing out live on Maine for us all to see was the social experiment. Not so sure. Doesn't matter really. But it definitely happened. I definitely logged into X and saw like 15 of his posts in a row, and it was a little much. So, uh, what are you going to do except don't log into X? And it's the kind of thing that proves my other point, which is that X is where big stuff happens. It also happens to be where nobody cares. Elon does not care to. Yeah, I think he banned him once and then brought him back, didn't he? And I guess you could just block him or mute him. But otherwise, he's going to show up because he's got like 30 million followers or something. And he's going absolutely crazy. But he's different than most people, right? He's different than the average person that is trying to do, just some talky time, just getting their opinion out there, just living their life quietly. But maybe they want to post a few things and they don't want to get canceled. You know, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different than me, right? Uh, it's a little bit different than what I'm just trying to say. I'm just trying to have some fun, live my life, share a few things, and it's a possibility that I could just get canceled. I might say the wrong thing somehow and accidentally end up, without a job. And that's not where Ye is at. It's not where Kanye is at. I have a hard time calling him Ye. That guy's a billionaire, multi-billionaire. He's made his money. He wants to inflame, and he's not like most people. It's impossible to judge his journey to anyone else, which is part of what he likes, right? But what if you are just a regular person? And what if you were growing up and you said something stupid because you really were just trying to get somebody's attention? Or maybe you had gone down like a bad narrative path for a while of believing that, I don't know, certain people in the world are better than others, right? Maybe you got influenced by, uh, some bad ideology and then came out of that eventually, you know? The great part about being a human is that you can change your mind and learn new things. And when I was a child, there was no cameras around all the time recording everything you said or everything you heard. So you couldn't make a permanent mistake that would follow you on the internet for decades, regardless of your trying to get rid of it. Everybody just went home after the playground. You were like, well, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Or maybe, Billy told your mom and then you got busted and your mom was like, well, let's have a talk about that, young man. Right. And you just wait till your father gets home, right? You could have a talk about it. Famously in the Christmas story, the A Christmas Story, A Christmas Story, Christmas movie where Ralphie from back in like the 60s or 70s, maybe 70s, uh, said a bad word on the playground, maybe a lot of bad words, right? And his mom put a bar of soap in his mouth and taught him his lesson. And that comments he made didn't follow him for 60 years and keep him out of being employed. So what did happen this week, right? Because it's different now. My kids are on some limited, like parent monitored, like Facebook Messenger with their friends. We can see everything they send and we can control the time limits. It's very limited. They don't have like full social media accounts. I don't think they're supposed to until they're late teens, mid teens. But they could still say something in one of their, group chats with their friends that they get a little bit of time to do every day that's wrong. And then that could follow them forever if it gets published on the internet, right? Could. And so that happened to somebody this week, somebody that works for Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, famously now, got fired because he had said some totally inflammatory and pretty racist stuff. I guess he said something like normalize Indian hate. I didn't read all the comments this person made, but he got fired from the Department of Government Efficiency because people are going like, who are these young people in Doge that are investigating the government? And what do they say? What have they done? Can we find a way to knock them out? Right? Can we find a way to take out this opposition force that's auditing the government uh, so quickly that it feels to some people like it's illegal? Whether it is or not, I don't actually know. It seems to be happening at the behest of the new administration, and Trump seems pretty fine with it, like what they're doing, how they're investigating and auditing things. So is it really a problem? But people think it is or oppose it, and so they're investigating and kind of doxing, these people that are government employees now in Doge. And now famously they have a bunch of quote unquote young people that can go to war and die for this country, old enough to do that, but seemingly not old enough to investigate the federal government using, I don't know, a Jupyter notebook and some Python scripts. It's like, let's download everything from USAID and the Department of the Treasury and run it in a Jupyter notebook and see where this money is really going. So they do that, and that's really pissing people off. And it could be that it's because uh, they're finding things out that people don't like, or it could be that it's all illegal, but it doesn't seem like it is. Doesn't seem like it is. So here's the deal, right? They fired the guy. And Ro Khanna asked JD Vance, "Are you going to tell him, the person they fired, to apologize for saying normalize Indian hate before they get rehired?" Because he's basically said, JD Vance says, like, look, I don't agree with this person's post, but stupid social media activity shouldn't ruin a kid's life. And I said, well, he should apologize. Everybody wants to know apologize. I have to read to you what JD Vance said in response to this person because it's instructive as to whether or not we're going to continue to have cancel culture in the society. And I say again, the reason I am anonymous on X is to protect my family from even a small mistake, because I can't risk being creative and being open and making a small verbal trip up that someone would attach to me, call my employer, and get me fired because my kids need to eat. So I can't do that. I don't feel like I can. Some people are fine with it. I feel the weight of the responsibility of not getting canceled. So I do the harder route and go anonymous. It actually is much more difficult. I think it'd be easier if I was non-anonymous. Here's what JD Vance said. For the sake of both our kids, grow up. In other words, stop trying to penalize this person for saying something, I guess, years ago. I guess it was like a comment from back in the day. He said, quote, JD Vance, racist trolls on the internet, while offensive, don't threaten my kids. Do you know what does? A culture that denies grace to people who make mistakes. A culture that encourages congressmen, this person, to act like whiny children. He continues, I cannot overstate how much I loathe this emotional blackmail pretending to be concern. My kids, he continued, God willing, will be risk takers. They won't think constantly about whether a flippant comment or a wrong viewpoint will follow them around for the rest of their lives. They will tell stupid jokes. They will develop views that they later think are wrong or even gross. I made mistakes as a kid, and thank God I grew up in a culture that encouraged me to grow and learn and feel remorse when I screwed up and offer grace when others did. Last piece. I don't worry about my kids making mistakes or developing views they later regret. I don't even worry that much about trolls on the internet. I worry they'll grow up to be a US congressman who engages in emotional blackmail. So I think this is an incredible series of posts. And like, just to be transparent with you, like, it speaks to me because the reason I'm anonymous is not again, I don't I don't think I have any controversial views, but all someone like it might be controversial to somebody, perhaps even someone I work with, I just don't know, that if they heard me reading his posts out loud on this show, they'd go, that's it. I can't believe that person thinks this is a positive view on life and we're going to fire you, right? Like, I do, maybe unrealistically, maybe unnecessarily, worry about that. And I don't want my kids to have to worry about it. I do want to raise them up and raise them right. But if they make a mistake, should it follow them their whole life? I don't think so. So I read a book years ago. Oh boy, what was it? I'm trying to remember the name of the book. I've almost got it on the tip of my tongue. I should have prepared. I think it's So You've Been Shamed. I have to look it up. So You've Been Publicly Shamed by Ron Johnson. So You've Been Publicly Shamed by Ron Johnson. That's the name of the book. I'll share this in here. So it was a book, 2015, about historical like levels of online shaming and public shaming. And it started like the book just gets right to the quick, right? It started talking about the lady who uh, went on a plane, and well, maybe they have it in here in the Wikipedia article. Yeah, I don't see it. Doesn't matter. This is a book like worth reading. It's very interesting, and it started with a woman who went on a plane, and she ended up making a tweet as the plane was taking off, and there was no Wi-Fi on the plane. So, she was going to Africa from the U.S., and so it was a long flight, no Wi-Fi. She fired off a tweet before she left the ground, and when she landed, she was fired, ostracized, and millions of people were throwing hate at her, quote tweeting her, telling her about how she was terrible, she should be ashamed, her kids should never have jobs because of the way she feels. What did she even say? What could she have said that made her lose her job and have years of pain and regret for firing off one, back in 2015, mind you, it was 140 characters only, one small tweet? Yeah. And again, had I done research for this part of the show, sorry, I would tell you exactly what she tweeted. But she was heading to Africa, and she was a very like liberal, kind of a bleeding heart Democrat, and made she's a white woman, and she made some comment about like, well, I'm going to go, to Africa. Like I hope I don't end up catching AIDS since the U.S. doesn't do enough, for AIDS reform in Africa or something like that. And she was trying to, like punch up at the U.S. government and their level of involvement with aid for AIDS in Africa. And her little crowd of like, like-minded thinkers that she might make that joke to at the bar or on an airplane or in her own little tech circles would have laughed and been like, yeah, you go girl. Like, I can't believe that they, don't provide more aid to people who are in pain and who need it. But that's not what happened. It got taken out of context, and people just flambéed her while she's sleeping on a plane. She's asleep, has no idea what's going on. She wakes up to like 47 voicemails from her employer, basically ending with, "You're fired. Don't ever work here again." Total cancel culture, publicly shamed, and it took her years to recover. Maybe she's not even recovered from that outcome. and she had to pay for uh, like a reputation cleaning service. Yeah, if you don't know, like if your name can be searched on the internet and you said something controversial, there's services out there that will kind of do a digital cleanup, and they can't delete everything off the internet, though they can ask certain websites to take certain content down, and they do, but they will also put in new content, fresh content that's different and uplifting. Oh, Ginny did all this work at the sandwich line at our local, local businesswoman does, you know, development work for people with special needs or what, they'll come up with all these like charity and interesting events that you actually go do, and then they write articles about them through their network of, groups. So they'll kind of pay out different groups and newspapers and things like that to write articles or to publish them so that you drop off your controversial results, drop off the first page of Google. Or I guess maybe now, I don't know if it works with LLMs. If I'm searching on Perplexity during the Super Bowl tomorrow to try and win $1 million, will that story of her tweet still come up as the first hit, or will it be something else? But you could do this like reintegration to the internet campaign, but you have to replace it with something else. You couldn't just take down everything because the internet's forever. So it's very interesting to me to have our vice president of the United States going, hey, relax. Somebody said something wrong once, and whether or not they feel that way then or now, it doesn't really hurt you. And many people do not feel that way, especially if it comes to somebody that said something, racist when they were younger, because the text is now, even though the feeling they had might have been then. And so they read the text now, and I go, well, that doesn't feel right. Why should somebody in our government have any view that seems controversial? And it's like, well, people change, constantly change. So do they really hold a view? Is it an active view? Is it an impacting view? And how much is in somebody's brain that we need to do a litmus test on, right? So it's really, to me, it has nothing to do with Kanye West. And yet, Kanye West was saying things that if anybody in the government said today and felt today, you would immediately get them out. But here's somebody that apparently years ago said something controversial, and we're saying, no, you should rehire that person. Don't let the cancel culture hit. It's not worth it. Let's forgive and move on. That person's moving on. So I don't know. What do you think, right? Like, should comments that you make, even in jest or in humor or out of context, follow you around and ruin your life? Or is that something that people need to get over? JD says we need to get it over. I don't know. I think we do. I think we need to get over it generally, but I'm also not affected by that person's comments. So there's like a question of impact, right? There's certainly been politicians recently. This is not meant to be a political show, by the way. It's hard not to have it be a little bit political this week. But, there were comments that, famously Hillary Clinton said that in 2016, that people that opposed her politically were a basket of deplorables, right? People that were not worth her time to try and be president for. And a lot of people go, oh, well, that's when the election turned, right? You can't alienate people like that. You can't have somebody in the most powerful area, powerful office in the land say something bad about any American citizens and just write them off, right? When you label someone, it writes them off from you trying to help them. You ever see that at work? Like you're talking to somebody and they're like, oh yeah, Jim is he's a total screw up, that guy. What does that mean? Now we've othered Jim, right? Because we've said he's a screw up. So that means that there's nothing you can do to help him. He inherently is a screw up. Bosses do this too, where they go, I got a bunch of lazy employees. Like lazy. That is such like a push of responsibility from the boss to the employee, right? That employee is lazy. When a boss says that, it means I don't have to help them. They are lazy. Not I'm lazy. Not that it's my responsibility. They're lazy. When they are lazy, the boss has abdicated their responsibility to make them as successful as they need to be. The label is the outward singular symptom that shows that he's written them off. And that's what Hillary Clinton did. She wrote off everybody that was in her basket of deplorables. So if you heard Trump or anybody else, depending on where you live, go, yeah, I got half the country that I just really don't care about. You go like, well, he's not going to worry about helping them. He's not going to worry about representing them. And so that's why politicians, when they're at their best and highest, they always go, "Oh, I want to be a president or a prime minister or whatever in Canada of all the people, right? I want to hug everybody. All the people are for me. I want to represent you. I want to help you. I want to make your lives better. I want to, fight for you." But as soon as they have divisiveness and go, "Yeah, I don't care about those people," they're they have abdicated their responsibility mentally of helping them. This coffee's still warm. We're moving on, folks. I can't talk about this anymore because there's so much more to talk about. All right, we did the list of cereals. I'm going to talk a little bit in our new segment that's really been around for 7 episodes now called "You're Watching What?" And the answer is I'm watching Severance. And if you're not watching Severance, remember the mantra where we don't worry about spoilers. The mantra that I would love everyone to think about is this: I can't wait to see how that happens. So if you think you might watch a television show that I'm going to talk about, or a video game, or anything else, it's I can't wait to see how that happens. And why? Because spoilers don't control you. You get to live your life right now when you want to. And if you can't wait to see how that happens, then spoilers are just an interesting part of consuming media. So, with that in mind, there's been a lot going on with Severance. And the thing that I'm finding about Severance, which, if you don't remember, is people who take the severed procedure work for a company called Lumen. And when they do it, they sever their inside lives from their outside lives. Their work lives and their personal lives literally become separate components in their brain, and they can't, never the twixt shall they meet. Right. So when they go to work, their innie, it's called a innie, their workie, their innie, or their outie are separate people. And they have this innie that knows how to go to the bathroom, knows how to use a pen and paper and write. Anything that you don't have to think about, they know, but otherwise they're fresh, they're blank. They're people that don't know where they're from, they don't know their name, their religion, they don't know any relationships that they have. They just wake up and they are a fresh new person that needs enrichment and relationships, and they need to be able to grow and learn. And they form relationships with these other severed employees, these other innies. And early in the first season, there was somebody that had escaped the program, if you will, and did what they call a reintegration, where their innie and their outie memories merge. And so now that they know what's going on the inside of the severed floor where the innies work, and they know the innie knows what's going on the outside, they become one person again, or maybe for the first time. But effectively, there's two different people. Like outie Mark and outie Helena are totally different people than innie Mark and innie Helly. And Mark in the prior episode went through a reintegration procedure. That's how the episode ended. And I'm like, well, if he becomes one person, then in a way, I'm losing as a watcher of the show any Mark. Like what happens? Like his personality is just a little different. And so it's such a complex show because you can have two people like Helly and Helena and four relationships because there's an innie and an outie and an innie and an outie. And when they start matching up in different ways, because the outie Helena that's seen on the camera here, that's her innie. Her outie is somebody that's high up in the company. And she's going through the severance procedure. We don't know exactly why. Presumably it's because it's like a proof point for the program as they try and expand it to, more people and more countries, whatever the mysterious work is that they're doing. So she's aware of what her innie is doing because she has access to all the records and the videotape and everything else. So she sees this relationship between Mark and Helly and is apparently jealous of that relationship. Um, and so there's this weird love. Maybe it's not a love triangle. What is that? Like a love square? like a love rectangle. Maybe it's a love pentagon because there's if you draw the points between these internal and external characters, so interesting. And the last episode that just hit on Thursday, I'm not even ready to talk about. I don't even think I could process this one yet. So you're just gonna have to wait. You need to go if you haven't watched this show. My encouragement to you is please go watch the show. It's an incredible show. We've also been watching a little bit about. We've been watching Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Me and my oldest little Jimothy, who's 10. Star Wars Skeleton Crew is really great for people who love maybe the Goonies. Remember the Goonies? They got these young kids in the Star Wars universe. There's a little bit of violence. There's a little bit of like Star Wars. Some people get killed or whatever. But for the most part, it's like kind of a much lighter hearted adventure with these kids, and it's really taken me and my oldest Jimothy on a cool adventure. So all that's out there in Disney Plus, and we've been slowly making it through The Greatest Showman. If you haven't seen The Greatest Showman, it's a musical with Wolverine. No, what's his name? Hugh Jackman, and it has some incredible songs in it, and it's about P.T. Barnum and Bailey's Circus. It's like an origin story. Um, but we've been watching that, and so we it seems like we watch it like 10 minutes at a time over weeks. So someday we'll finish The Greatest Showman. Um, all right, and what I've been reading, I haven't had a lot of time to read this week. I got to tell you, it's been a video game heavy week, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But I have been reading this recommendation. I asked a few weeks ago, "Hey, give me your favorite philosophy books. Like you can give me a podcast, but I'd prefer a complete thought in the form of a book." And Monkey and the Machine said, "How about Modernity on Endless Trial?" Um, Linking Western thought to technological progress. So I did download this book by Leszek Kolakowski, and I read some of the first chapter of it, and it was wild so far because I was like, okay, I'm not even sure I know what modernity is, but it legitimately, or it seems to be so far in the first chapter, be talking about uh, modern thought, almost like, oh, remember the good old days? Well, that's non-modern, right? And everything that's brand new that might be upsetting to somebody is to the old school, right? Things aren't as good as they used to be. They don't make them the way they used to. These kids these days is the modern, right? So I thought this was a cool pull quote that I'm going to read. He's talking about like, hey, everything in the past seems to be something that people long for, the older folks long for, and the newer, younger people reject modernity. They embrace the modernity, but it's hard to kind of tell where we are. Like, are we in something that's more modern? Are we in the end of our society before it rebirths? The fall of Rome. Are we in the end of Rome? And so, what do we know about our current age that we're in, especially in the age of this rapid change that we've seen over the last, even month, much less 5 years in the U.S. With constant cultural change that seems to be accelerating. Um, and essentially, early on, this book says we can't know. It says we are in principle prevented from revealing uh, our values and our beliefs about where we are, kind of because we're in the middle of it. It says, unless of course the owl of Minerva has already flown out and we are living in the twilight at the very end of an epoch. In other words, if we could see the end of the age that we're in, and it's obviously clear that we're in the fall of Rome or the decline of the Western civilization or something like that, then maybe we can know. But otherwise, we could be, if you look at like a stock chart, some people will show a stock chart with, you know, up for good, green, green is good as it goes up and to the right. If your favorite stock is going up and increasing in value, and then red and down if it's going down and becoming worse. Um, but if you zoom out to a longer time frame, like that just looks like a little blip on the radar chart, right? So like, hey, the stocks might be down right now, but if you zoom out to 5 years or 10 years out, maybe it's still largely up or largely down, right? So you don't have the perspective while you're in it to be able to talk about it. I was like, okay, that's a little philosophy minute. Let's move on. I'm gonna take a deep sip of this coffee in this ember mug at a perfect 136 degrees Fahrenheit. It's good. We're on to the Jimothy Gaming Minute, and it won't be a minute. We've got a lot to talk about here. One thing that we're not going to talk about in the Jimothy Gaming Minute is how much games we're playing on PlayStation right now, because I can tell you it's still down, or I think it's still down. The PlayStation Network is down for over a day. I think we're up to like 20 hours over from one sunset to the sunrise. PlayStation is down. Now, that might not affect you if you don't play online games or if you own all your games physically, but increasingly, especially for me, I don't even want to buy physical games as much because it becomes a hassle to change them out and did we lose them? And it's just more convenient to just buy them and go. I don't have to go to the store, wait for a delivery to show up with a physical disc or a cartridge. Let's just buy it and go. And so that convenience of just buy it and go means that yes, I won't be the person that makes sure that all the games are archived forever and ever. Amen. I won't be the archivist. I'll just be somebody that enjoys them and moves on. But it relies a lot on these services. I'm lucky enough to have two PlayStations. So I've got one PlayStation 5 in the living room and the one that's here where I do the Jimothy show in the smaller room off to the side where it's like at night, I kind of close the door if I want to play The Witcher and, do it without the little Jimothy's, seeing whatever The Witcher is going to do. But that second console is kind of like the cloud console. So if PlayStation Network's down, I can't access any of the games. So it is a brick because it's also a PS5 Pro, which has no disk drive. So I got no disk drive, no physical games on it, and because it's my second console, it requires an active line to the internet to PlayStation Network. And if that's out, no games are accessible. So it actually does bricks my console when PlayStation Network is down. I can still play the one in the main living room. But the kids just don't want to see The Witcher, I guess. Speaking of which, I am still working through this challenge. And when I say working through it, I mean I mean that I've been challenged. Where is it? I've been challenged to finish The Witcher 3 by somebody that basically said, "You're not going to finish The Witcher 3." And I said, "Oh yeah, here it is." Somebody posted on December 31st, 2024. Here's games that will be a decade old this year. A decade old in 2025. Undertale, Batman Arkham Knight, Call of Duty Black Ops 3, Five Nights at Freddy's 3 and 4, Tekken 7, Witcher 3, Fallout 4, MGS 5, Ori and the Blind Forest, and Life is Strange. Somebody asked me about Life is Strange this week. I haven't beaten that either. So I said, okay, fine, I'll finish The Witcher 3 this year. And I meant it, but I've been pushing it off for a long time. I keep starting and stopping and restarting that game. And this dude that says, ask me about my dining room tables, is his name, or it's his handle. He says, you won't finish The Witcher 3. And that's a fact, Jack. I said, thank you for this challenge. I love it. I really appreciate this gift. Why? Because I might actually finish it just to prove this person wrong. The problem is that Witcher 3 is like a 200-hour game. And I can't play it during the day with the little Jimothys around because it's pretty violent. It's pretty rough. And so I can only really play it at night. Well, what am I doing at night? I don't know, playing other games, which we'll get into in a minute. I'm watching Severance. I'm reading Endless Modernity on Trial, right? Like I'm doing a lot of other things except playing this game, which is why I still haven't finished it. Though every time I play it, I'm like, this is a good game. It's a good game. So the update for the month for February is I have not played The Witcher this month. That's the update. The update is he might be right before I know it. So I've put about 5 or 7 hours into it in January, but that's been about it. Because what else is going on? Well, the answer is Civilization 7. Civilization 7, if you don't want to pay extra money, is out next week. But as someone encouraged me to realize, uh, there's only a new Civilization 7 once in a blue moon. The last one was in 2016, if you can believe it. And why not buy the fancy version? Why not get all the content because you're only going to buy one this decade. And you might not buy it till late next decade at the rate the games are coming out. So just enjoy it. Just get it. So I bought the fancy version. It came out Wednesday, and I've done 2 live streams uh, that a lot of people have checked out so far. So if you've been checking that out, thanks for taking a look at those live streams. I've also made some additional content. Um, there's a lot of serial chat coming in uh, on the post. I'll have to talk about that in a second. But yeah, I've done a lot of small clips. It turns out when you stream to Twitch, Twitch has a really good editor at the end of it. Like it has a really solid like clip editor. So I can take a little clip of what I've got, um, and I'll share it here just to give you a little visual of it. It does a really good job of taking a piece of the screen to kind of make it vertical so it looks good on your phone. Of course, I'm sharing here in the PC. But I had a post called Uncultured Broke Citizens with a Lot of Food. Sign me up. Just trying to figure out like, hey, what's going on in my city, in my town? Why isn't my culture or science doing well? You know, everybody's got food and they're happy, but they're uncultured idiots, right? They're not making anything. They're just, you know, making enough food to be happy. To which I decided is probably fine. That sounds great. I'd like enough food to be happy. But it's really easy to like cut these clips where at the same time I've got like a little vertical view of the city, and then you know, a detailed view of what was my city information, and you could just do it right on Twitch. Like it's really powerful just to create these little clips. And so with over 100 and I think 10 hours of people viewing Jimothy videos this week on just on X, um, it's been really cool to see how easy it is to make these clips. So yeah, I've been streaming Civ 7. I plan to stream more. It's really not that much more effort, though. I think it does take more energy out of me to stream. If I'm playing Civ 7, especially for the first time, I'm still thinking about it. I'm like, how do I play? You know, what are settler? How do I make another settler? How do I create another town? Should I really take out these small city states that seem hostile to me, or should I try and defend them? So I've never pro streamed anything. I've never streamed on Twitch before in the last month or so, and it's very interesting because I just say out loud the things that be thinking in my head anyway, and people seem to like it. You know, a lot of you are showing up. On X and Twitch and YouTube to like the post or to be a part of it. I am actually legitimately surprised that people are watching these streams, and yet, of course, I like to watch people play games and narrate them. So, why would it be any different? Civilization 7. I plan to do more. So, if you want to see more Civ content, don't worry. I'll just hit the stream button and you'll see more if you want to because you follow me here on X or Twitch or YouTube. So I'll probably stream some more of that maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. Though tomorrow is the Super Bowl, so maybe not tomorrow. Okay, what else? You know, surprisingly, I found out that there's a lot of game. I've never logged in to Netflix on my phone. I just don't think to do that. But if you subscribe to Netflix, you can log in on your phone, and they have a ton of mobile games on there, an absolute ton. And it's kind of like Apple Arcade, where if you pay for Apple Arcade, Apple only has versions of the games on Apple Arcade. Some of them are unique or exclusive to Apple Arcade, but many of them are just versions of games you could go buy or see in the App Store. But they have stripped out all the ads, they strip out all the in app purchases, and it's just the game. You know, maybe they even retune it or add some new content so that it feels like you're not missing out on, like, you know, when they're trying to capture whales who are going to spend 199 US dollars on like a, you know, a pack or something. They strip all that stuff out and rebalance the game so that you can just enjoy the game. Apple Arcade does great at that. It's the only games, almost the only games. I'll get into one that is an exception here in a second, that I'll allow the little Jimothys to play because I don't want them inundated with ads. When I was growing up, especially for cereal, I was inundated with ads on TV. I guess it was only TV because video games didn't have ads back then, really. But if you watched, you know, 20 minutes of TV, you got 10 minutes of ads, and they were constant and they pelted you, and it made me want stuff all the time. My kids don't really seem to want anything, and partially because I don't know, I feel like they have a lot, but they're not going like, "Oh my gosh, I saw this commercial. Can we get this thing?" They'd never say that because they don't see commercials. It's because I pay for the ad-free tiers of everything because ads bother me, and I don't let them play games with ads. So they don't, they just find out about stuff because they trip over it. Like there's nobody teaching them because of a New York ad consultancy to get them interested in something. And we're going to be going soon to Universal Studios Florida, and I had to tell them about it. They're like, "What's that?" And I was like, "I guess okay, guess you don't know." And I was like, "Well, do you know all these characters?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we know those characters." Like, "Well, you can go see them." They never heard about the theme park. And when we had told them a couple of years ago we were going to go to Disneyland, "Hey, we're going to Disneyland," and they were like, "What's that?" I'm like, "How did you grow up not hearing about this?" Uh, but they hadn't heard about it because most of the places that you hear about it are advertised. And these are not. So there's a ton of Netflix mobile games and a ton of like really good ones. Some of them are originals and some of them are just ones that have been kind of scrubbed and redone without the in-app purchases, like Game Dev Tycoon, which I just downloaded, is on there. But it doesn't have the in-app purchases, doesn't have the hassle. It's just the game and it's there. So if you're somebody who's pays for Netflix and you like mobile games, there's a bunch there. I just never log in on my phone. And when I did, I was like, wow. Okay, one more game, which is it is a mobile game, and it is one that has in-app purchases. But I think I've kind of told you all that I've been playing some Pokemon, and there's this game called Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket. So there's two Pokemon games that are digital on phones. Well, I guess there's three. One of them is Pokemon Go, but of the ones that use the cards as their primary game, it's Pokemon Trading Card Game, TCG, and then there's Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket. What's the difference? Pokemon Trading Card Game, when you buy a pack of physical Pokemon cards, there's a little number in there that lets you import the pack of the cards that you just got into the card game. And so for the people that are hardcore, like into tournament style Pokemon, it's great because their physical purchases feed their digital version of the game. This version, though, Pocket, Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket, doesn't have that connection to the card packs, except that the game is about opening up card packs. So as soon as you download the game, it's all about, hey, you can open up genetic Apex packs, or they've got this Space Time Smackdown expansion or whatever, and you get 2 packs a day that you can open up. And it opens up, and you get 5 cards in there, and you collect them, and there's a Pokedex, and you can make your own decks and battle. But it's all free. Like you don't have to pay for anything. You don't have to buy the card packs. You can pay for some stuff in there, but mostly it's like, hey, if you wait, you'll have all the card packs. And there's so much in there that me and my youngest Timothy, who are playing these together, she like we can't even keep up. We'll show up at the end of the day, and both our card packs are up together, and then we'll make a deck, and then we'll battle. And the battle is fun. So if you have been playing the Pokemon TCG or trading card game, which for the first time in my life I've played, like it came out when Pokemon came out when I was a kid. I was just a little bit too old and never got into it, but I'm getting to relive it. I'm getting to catch up. And you make a 60 card deck, and there's 6 prize cards to win. So in other words, you have to win. You have to beat 6 of your opponent's Pokemon, or if they have like this EX version, there's worth 2 points. So the games can go on for a while. It could be like 15, 20, 30-minute games if everybody knows the rules. So when you're learning the rules, it can take days. It could take days in my case, where there's no way we're keeping up. So, but this game simplifies it. So you have the same rules basically, but it's 20 card decks. So it takes all the energy cards out, and you just generate an energy per turn, which is about the same effect of the regular card game. And there's only 3 prize cards, not 6. You only have to knock out 3 of their Pokemon, or if they play these special EX versions, then you only have to knock out one of those plus one other card. And so we can start up a game, play the whole game, start to open our packs, create a new deck with whatever new packs that we just got, and then battle each other all in about 20 minutes. And it's totally free. Like, you could pay money, but I'm not sure why you would. Like, I don't understand why you would pay money. It's if you are somebody that knows someone that's Pokemon or would like to be, I really like it's been like I don't even know why you would buy the physical card backs unless you want to go play the deeper version of the game. Um, so oh my gosh, there's a bot in here. Get out of here. Blocking you. Cool, man. It's my first bot that showed up in the stream. Amazing. Really really happy. Really happy to have a bot show up in the stream. Okay. That's a lot. That's a lot of video games, I feel. Let me wrap it up with this. Here's the final segment of the show. It's called Deep Thoughts with Jimothy. You might have thought when we were talking about modernity on Endless Trial, it was Deep Thoughts. But this one's deeper and shorter for me, which is we use AI a lot. I was using AI art at the top of the show to show the Fruit Loops. I use it to code. I created a little app on my phone using Replit, Replit, to make a little app to track the Pokemon battles, who wins, who loses. The game for some reason doesn't track it when you do private matches. So I used Replit to just chat with a bot to create the app, which was pretty incredible. It made like a Python app with a Postgres database and just made it right there on the phone. I didn't have to code a thing. Just straight up made the app, and it's actually pretty usable. People are using AI more than ever before. But as I said at the top, don't let your AI take away your voice. Don't let it write all your words or create a script for you that you just read, right? Use the AI to accelerate your work, your creativity, get unstuck, get that starting point moving. But people are online, people are listening to this show right now because they care about some authenticity. They want to hear a real human talking about something that they care about. And I don't know if I'll ever have a big audience. To me, it's huge to have 30 plus people listening to me right now. And, how many dozens more might hear it later. Maybe if I hit 100 streams one day, I'm not going to have a party, right? But the only reason we're talking together is because it's authentic. Don't let someone take that away from you just because you can use AI. Don't not use AI. Use the AI, but make sure that your voice is authentic. Make sure that your content is always you. I logged on a LinkedIn earlier today and there was a post where I was like, God, this is just a chat GPT post. And people were replying and reposting it and getting in there and talking about it. I was like, I could see all the hallmarks of chat GPT all over this post. You know, in our modern society where X is Y, then you really need to think about one, two, and three. Like, you could just see the AI all over that post. That person didn't write any of it. And it was kind of disheartening to me because it was also popular. And, you know, maybe that's going to take over all the content in the world and even voice, podcasts. There's some one of my coworkers went, some people might want to listen to this topic I'm writing about in podcast form. I'm just going to feed it through a podcast maker. And so he fed his LLM generated information into a LLM generated podcast maker. And the podcast that came out on the other end was pretty good. I was like, holy crap. Now you could still tell it wasn't perfect, and you could tell there wasn't a real human behind it. You could tell that, but not it was better than I thought it would be. It was better than I thought it would be. And pretty soon the writing will be better, and I won't even be able to tell the difference. And then what are we doing? And you know what I think it's going to be? I think that in the same way, back in Fight Club, if you can remember that movie, where the consumerism of the main character, where he was talking about every little thing perfectly created in his apartment with his dishes that were just imperfective enough. The dishes just had enough imperfections to make sure that you knew that they were handmade by somebody somewhere. And it was like this thing to loathe, like whatever, Your specially curated personality means that you have to have dishes that are just imperfected enough. But actually, you know what? Kind of like, you know what an LLM's not going to miss? Spelling something right. So if you have a typo in a post, it's like, wait a minute, that might be a real human. What are the things we're going to find 2 years from now, maybe a year, maybe 6 months from now, to try and identify whether someone's really a human? And it's a little scary that they could take it all away. So in the meantime, be authentic. Find some way to share your humanity with somebody. And it might mean eventually we just have to do it in person so we can know. Authentic, not agentic. Everybody, thanks for listening to the show. It's the only X First podcast on the internet. I can't believe that you spent so much time with me today. I really appreciate it. We talked about the problem with fasting for 21 hours. It's that it works. It's that the fasting works. It's Valentine's Day this week, so please don't forget your people. We talked about how Kanye is tweaking on Maine, but maybe cancel culture is really over. Maybe it's fine. Maybe you can make a mistake, and the vice president will forgive you. We talked about Severance, maybe not enough, maybe too much. Star Wars, Skeleton Crew, The Greatest Showman. We talked about modernity on Endless Trial, and we ranked Fruit Loops as the number 2 cereal in the world based on the best list. We talked a lot about gaming. PlayStation's down. Don't know how long it will be down. Civilization 7. There's some Netflix games out there if you open up the app on your phone. How much I haven't played The Witcher. And the Pokemon customizable card. What is it called? The Pokemon trading card game pocket. And how to be authentic, or at least how to think about being authentic. So that's the show. I really appreciate you. Follow me on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Leave me a review if you like the show. Leave me some show feedback under this post. And I guess technically you can go out there and tip me or buy me a coffee or something, but I don't even think I have that link in my profile anymore. I would just love for you to follow the show, engage with the content, kind of rate it and follow it. That helps me a lot. And share the show. If you like the show, please share it with your friends. That would be amazing. And thanks so much. I really appreciate you being here. Have a great weekend.